Hey everyone, it is Gabriela Flores from soulexcelsior.com. I am here to bring you the awesome and the incredible and awakened Tyran the Sex, the Harry Healer, the sex and relationship coach. How are you, Tyran? How are you? How's everything?
Hey, Gabriella, how are you? Thank you. I'm really good. Yeah. Just chilling over here in Australia, doing my thing, traveling around and yeah, trying to help people with their sex and the relationships in their lives.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, truly. Okay, so first of all, for those who don't know Tyran, I actually just recently found him on Facebook. He wrote this incredible post, which floored me. Like, I literally felt like he jumped into my soul. He like took a whole bunch of things together and then was like, here you go. Here's some like gold light wisdom. So before we jump into who, Tyran is and what his purpose on this beautiful planet is to do, I would like to first ask you, how did you get to this state of being awoken?
Um, how long is this
Question.
interview?
I know, I do
Um,
that. I just jump through, I put people right in there.
yeah. So, I mean, the short story is I grew up as a typical Australian bloke. I'm a bricklayer by trade. I worked out in the mines for a little while. I've played Australian football for most of my life. And I grew up as everyone else, drugs, alcohol, sex, trying to feed this void inside of me with external stuff. And it led to failed relationships. It led to failed friendships. It led to getting in trouble with the law and lots of other different things. I typically, as a man, I just was like, I'll just keep soldiering on. I'm okay. I'm just going to keep going. And got to a point where my partner left me. We had a house together and dogs and everything, and she left, and that kind of hit a sore spot. And so for the next 2 years, I worked out in the mines and I just drank myself into oblivion. And I went overseas on a holiday for a friend of mine's wedding, and I pretty much drank myself into oblivion again for 3 weeks with all my mates, and had lots of random sex at a full moon party in Thailand, and took heaps of drugs. And then I had 2 days by myself at the end of it all, and I had a breakdown. I realized that I hated everything about my life and what I was doing. Now I was 27. I'd already bought 2 homes. I'd had a long-term partner. We'd had dogs. We renovated it. We did that whole thing. And then it had failed, and that hadn't made me happy. And so I was like, I didn't know what, I was kind of questioning life, really. And so I bought a one-way ticket to Europe, and I went traveling, and I just started to explore all of my fears. Basically everything that I'd been scared to explore growing up because of social conditioning and because of my circle of friends telling me that something was gay or something was not this or not that. So I never went into it. I went into all those things. And now I can't stop. It's just been a continuous evolutionary path. And that led into yoga and acrobatics and embodiment and dance. And then from that, it led into sacred sexuality. And now it's led into, becoming a sex and relationships coach to try and help predominantly men, but it's really hard to get men to talk about their sexuality. I'm trying to find, I find, working with men difficult, not because I'm challenged by it, but because it's hard to get them to step up and acknowledge that they have premature ejaculation or porn addiction or erection issues, or that they want deeper intimacy with their partner, or that they want more from their own lives, because as men, we're supposed to just keep on going on, and it's not an issue. It shouldn't be an issue. So, I do find it challenging. And a large amount of my following are women. But, you know, I can also help women, let them know what goes on in a man's mind. You know, like why we're closed off, why we are suppressed, why we don't want to talk about our feelings. And so, yeah, I'm currently putting together a piece for women, like an online thing on giving them tools on how they can kind of impregnate the fortress of that men put up around their hearts and around their emotions.
Oh my goodness, that is absolutely incredible and beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing your experience. What prompted you to want to make a change? I know you mentioned awesome Garfield mug, by the way. Shout out to Garfield. What prompted you to want to make a change? Because you said that you had gone through, I guess it was the whole idea of that you hated, right, your current state of, you know, how you were perceiving life in that moment. But what was it? What was that sort of like motivation that really said, you know what? Because there's a lot of people out there, and even viewers now, that are like, that they can say I hate something about something in their life, and they still won't make a change. So what was it that led you to really take that step to be like, I've got to change this? And what was that sort of deciding factor?
Yeah, so like the breakdown in Thailand was the thing that made me realize that I had to change my own life. And so I went and did that. And then when I came back, I'd been gone 13 months. And although I had changed aspects of it, I was still really scared that I was going to slip back into old habits. And when I came back, I started writing about it. I started a blog post when I was overseas. And, you know, it wasn't super popular. I just put it on my Facebook page. Still isn't super popular. I actually haven't wrote on it for a long time. I just do it I just write on my professional page now. But I had this realization that, like, when I came home, a lot of my footy mates who suppress everything, the same as we all did, they all reached out and were like, oh man, I was reading your posts, and like, wow, like it was really, you know, none of them liked my post, none of them shared it, none of them commented, none of them publicly expressed interest, but a lot of them came up to me privately. And then as I continue this journey, as I go deeper into the constructs of masculinity and femininity and men and women in the world, you know, I did a post, the first really out there post I did was on premature ejaculation and porn addiction. And I must have had about 25 men message me privately, acknowledging their own issues with both of those subjects, but not being able to talk about it, and asking for help or support or insights or whatever from my own experiences. And so, like, the deeper I go into it, the more I talk about this stuff that I don't hear anyone else really talking about publicly, the more I realized that I wasn't the only one. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, how big are these issues, and why is no one talking about them? Like, yeah, we want to talk about, you know, the Me Too campaign, and we want to talk about, you know, men's mental health, and we want to talk about we want to talk about the results, but we don't want to talk about what's causing the cause. And I believe that suppressed sexuality is the root cause for a large percentage of am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yes, of course.
A large amount of the fucked upness of our planet.
We encourage it.
Yeah, thank you. I just like to be in consent first.
So
yeah, it's like, yeah. And you think about it, I think about it from my experience, right? I was a boy running around naked up till I was about 4 or 5 years old. And then we went to school. And then all of a sudden you weren't allowed to be naked anymore. You had to have clothes on. So we get taught body shame from very early on. Then, you know, we touch ourselves all the time because we're kids and we're interested and things feel nice. And we get told not to touch ourselves. You know, I got told millions of times, stop playing with your willy, it'll fall off. You know? And then we hit puberty, and all of a sudden, like, things start happening to our body. And, you know, a boy, I for example, went home one day, all the girls had cooties at school. I didn't want to touch them. Right. But it was this weird thing. I was like attracted, but not, you know. Yeah. And then I had my first wet dream. And then all of a sudden I came to school, and all I wanted to do was, like,
just dive
penetrate every single girl in school. And I didn't know what was going on, and no one had talked to me about it. I didn't know what was happening in my body.
Yeah.
And then I felt shameful. And now all of a sudden I love touching myself because it feels great, but I've been told not to touch myself my whole life. So there's this shame, guilt thing going on. Like, oh my God, this thing feels so good, and yet I'm not supposed to do it. You know, and religion's been a big part of our culture for that, you know, suppressing everything that feels good because it's bad and all that stuff. Right. So yeah, so then we get caught in this battle, and it's like, what is the most sensitive part of not just a boy's body, but any young person's body when they start masturbating? Their ears, because they're in their bedroom waiting for anyone to come and listen, like, will mum and dad catch me? Will I get in trouble? They're not actually experiencing pleasure in their body, like the amount of pleasure that they can, because they're scared they're going to get caught doing something that we all do.
Right.
And so, yeah, you know, that's the start of it. And then we're not allowed to approach women because men are all predators now. And, you know, we're so fucking scared of this predator energy or this penetrative energy that men have, which, don't get me wrong, it's not good when it's unhealthy. But because we suppress it from when we're young, men are taught that they're dirty, bad, or boys are taught they're dirty, bad creatures that need to suppress this sexual energy that no one actually teaches them about. And so what happens?
I'm sorry to interject, because I love where you're going right now. Like, I'm like in it right now, and I was just like thinking to myself. So you know, I'm from New York, right? And the way they teach the little boys here is, you know, they say they go, Timmy, how many girlfriends do you have? And they go, oh, I got 4 girlfriends. Good for you, Timmy. Good job. You know, they kind of like. It's like a very, like, from a very young age, like I hear the whole concept of suppressing of the sexual energy, but then at the same time, they're also teaching you to sort of be like a player for the guy.
Exactly.
So it's so weird the way that it's, you know, like the different types of things that are being thrown to the male in their sort of growing up in their molding, right? Like suppress the things that make you feel good, which is your sexuality, but then also like go out there and have many girls, and you'll be rewarded for it. Like, we as a society will reward you as a player. So what do you think is really the whole, like, how do you
suppress women if they are as well?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely.
Shame women if they are. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally shame. Like, if a woman does the same thing, she's this, she's that. It's like nonstop. So it's like, do you think as a society, we are constantly just looking to put ourselves in a box? And like, so if like, I can put you in a box, I can control you. I can decide what you are. I can decide what kind of values, what kind of beliefs you are. And then, you know, when you're ready to sort of come out of the box, then I've known that I've done everything I can to, you know, mold you into what I need you to mold. Do you think that's what society does to us? And like, what is the purpose for all of this when we're all just go through our own phases of self-destruction, right? To find ourselves and then go and say, now we're awakened and we've realized it's all been a lie.
Yeah. So yeah, to some extent. So I think we have, you know, gay, straight, bi, trans, male, female, like we have all these labels. All of it. Labels. Before it was like man and woman. It was man and woman. And now it's like, well, I don't feel like I'm a woman, even though I'm in a woman's body. It's like, okay, so you can be trans. So it's just another label to fit something. Because deep down at the center of all of us, there is no separation. You are in a woman's body, but that doesn't mean that you actually have to abide by what society tells you is womanly. You can have lots and lots of what they say masculine traits inside of you, because you have a masculine. So I look at the yin and yang, right? The circle with the yin and yang in it. For us to experience wholeness, we need to understand that we have 2 halves inside of ourselves. And that is, you can call it positive, negative, masculine, feminine, up, down, dark, light, whatever you want to call it. We need polarities to exist, but polarities are a part of a whole, right? So 2 halves of something. So, you know, to be okay with people that don't want to call certain traits feminine and certain traits masculine, I'm going to say it anyway, because it's just for me, it's the easiest way to explain. So, you know, like feminine traits are traditionally being emotional, being kind of like flowy and wavy and go with the flow, and masculine is very like decisive and to the point. Now, that's not to say that women don't have masculine traits and the men don't have feminine traits. Like male musicians are in their creative, juicy, feminine flow, you know, and women, business women, they're in their masculine, decisive, like planned structure flow.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything other than like, okay, I'm sorry that you feel offended that it's a masculine trait and a feminine trait. Yes, they don't necessarily have to be separate, but that's the way our society views things. So that being said, there it is. But until we realize that it's okay to be more of one than the other, regardless of what body you're in, until we find that own acceptance that we are whole and that I can tap into my masculine and my feminine whenever I want, however I want, that's when we find self-liberation, because we're no longer, like you say, closed in the box of I have to fit this category or this stereotype. In the end of the day, yes, we don't need labels. We are just free human beings that can do and say and feel whatever it is we want. And we can express pain and anguish and sadness and craziness, whether in male bodies or female bodies. And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. I cry all the fucking time. I love crying.
Hugs. Sending you hugs, man.
There's a part of me that doesn't like it, but deep down I know the healing that comes, because when I know that I can be fully expressive in my emotions, I can love myself a little bit more. I can appreciate myself. And so I can let go of this expectation that I have to be something and be broken and be loved in my brokenness. And then when I'm loved in my own brokenness, I can, by myself, other people, then I feel I have more self-acceptance, and then I can love other people in their brokenness.
Oh my goodness.
Deep down, we're all broken.
Yeah.
But that's what makes us beautiful.
It's so weird because I just thought of something, like you just said, well, you said a lot of very beautiful and powerful things. Our society isn't whole because it's constantly either masculine or you see the rise of extreme feminine, right? But it's never whole. And for whatever reason, that's why we're broken. Like I just had like a light bulb moment where it was like, as you were speaking, I'm like, maybe that's it. Maybe our society isn't whole, and that's why we always feel like we're missing the other half and we don't feel complete on our own. So we go through these, what we're supposed to be molded to be versus going within in what we're supposed to complete. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we have to be whole, but I think we haven't realized that we're whole. You know, it's like, we're still looking for the other part of us outside, which is why men are attracted to women, because the men hold the masculine point and the women hold the feminine point. So we're always looking to create wholeness from somewhere else. And you're right. Like the construction of our societies and of our civilizations have been very masculine over the last couple of 1,000 years. And now the feminine rights are starting to stand up, and it's amazing and it's needed and it's beautiful. But it's polarized the other direction now. And now we need to find some form of harmony where the women and the feminine accept the men and the masculine for everything that's happened, and the men and the masculine accept the feminine and the women for everything that's happened. And we find harmony rather than playing this, you've done this, I've done this, victim, perpetrator, savior bullshit continuously forever. Because as long as that exists, as long as someone feels victimized about something that has happened, did happen, should have happened, we're never going to completely heal.
Huge. Whew. I feel like we just like uncovered like some deep like earth wound or something, you know, some deep planet wound. Okay. So I know there are plenty of viewers that are going to ask me this question. How does an unawakened man and woman, I don't know, you work with men, so I'm going to go with men. I know you're doing something with the woman, which is great. But how does an unawakened man do this? How does he become more present in his relationship, in his life, in himself? how does he do this? How does he do
Yes.
this for himself?
And he has to get honest. And it's always something we all have to get honest with ourselves, you know, and it comes to a place of like, I look at the same instance of like anything you want to do in your life, no matter what change it is. Let's say you smoke and you want to quit smoking. Your desire for quitting has to become stronger than your desire to smoke. Like you have to actually want it. You have to have something pulling you. I don't like to say pushing because pushing is like, I just don't like push. But you have to have something
like an obligation. Pulling seems like you're wanting.
Yeah, it's like I can't do anything about this. I'm being pulled. Whereas push is like I can push back against the push.
Right.
my interpretation.
I hear you.
But it's like, yeah, something has to be pulling that person deep enough to want to create change in their life, whatever that is. And sometimes that can be a relationship. Sometimes that can be like whatever it is. Like for me, it was a breakdown. Like I said, I had a bit of a mental breakdown and a self implosion of my own belief systems. You know, sometimes it will be failed relationships. Or maybe it'll be a new relationship and you don't want to lose that person, or like whatever it is. They have to find the desire within them to want to work on it and then make that commitment. Now, you know, I went a little bit overboard and now I can't get out of this. I'm down the rabbit hole and I'm just going to keep going. But I think it's, what is it that you want? Like if you're a woman trying to awaken your partner, or if you're a man and you just want more of yourself, or maybe you're a man and you're trying to go deeper with your partner and she's not willing, because it does happen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I've found that like it comes down to having self-respect and self-dignity. And it's like, what am I worth? Because so many times we will settle for less and be happy with that because we're too scared of having nothing. And I see this play out all the time. I've done it in my own relationships. I just saw it recently in a family member's relationship. It's like, I would rather be happy with 40% of what I want than get and guaranteed that 40% than quit that 40%, seeking more, but then the possibility of not actually getting it, you know? So we settle in moments. We settle with jobs, we settle with homes, we settle with relationships, we settle with like, you know, all different things. And I'm not just talking about relationships, but we just settle with something that we're not 100% happy with because we'd rather not fail at something and be considered like, yeah, I didn't get what I wanted, but I didn't also go for it. Therefore I didn't fail. So we're too scared of failing. You know, we'd rather sacrifice or compromise something than go after what we want and fail, because we all have fear. We all have, you know, and it hurts. Healing hurts, you know, like going back into old traumas and trying to heal. You know, for me personally, it's my father, my divine father relationship. So which mirrors into my physical father, you know, not showing up in my life enough. It's hard to revisit those moments, and it's not something that we're all ready for and that we all want to do. But if you don't do it, you're just going to pass it on to your children if you have them, and the people around you. And we just pass on our family heritage wounding all the time. And I feel like that's what's been healing the planet. That's why people are more conscious around the planet and what they're using. You know, we don't have any world wars like they did 50 years ago. We don't need to suppress our emotions like we did 50, 60, 70 years ago, which is why it's all coming to the surface now, which is why all these men on the planet are so much more attuned to their emotions, but they're being told not to express them, which is creating this big like struggle inside.
That is so beautiful and profound. So you said something about the rabbit hole, which I absolutely loved that you said, where you said, I am now in this and I've gone way too far because I'm now, did you say addicted, or did you say you're just kind of continuing the exploration? What's your motivation to continue on your spiritual journey besides the fact that you're deep within the rabbit hole?
So when I went to Europe the first time about 4.5 years ago now, I went and spent 10 days in a Buddhist monastery and just, yeah, you know, I was really unhappy and I was searching, and meditation was something I'd already been interested in and never had the courage to go to because it wasn't wasn't manly enough, or it wasn't whatever my weird construct told me about. Um, and I started getting really scared. I was meditating on my own father wounds, and then I was realizing, like, how hard must it be to be a parent? Like, how do you raise a child to teach them to go after everything they want, that they can be anything they want to be, that like they are only restricted by their imagination? But how do you teach them responsibility of their own life without teaching them fear, without teaching them, like, if you do this, I'm going to punish you because it's the wrong thing, but at the same time teach them to go after they want, even if it's not what other people, you know what I mean? It's like this constant struggle.
How do you keep them free, in an essence, to be themselves, like before anyone told them that they can't be?
Yeah. But then teach them discipline of what's right and wrong at the same time, and punish them when they do the wrong thing, but not teach them fear. Right. And so I sat for a few days meditating on this, and I was just like, I had no idea. And then it dropped, like just this one moment it dropped, and it's like, you have to be honest at the end of the day. It's like, and so you have to just be the best person you can be in every moment. And then also express your weaknesses. Like, be real with your children. Don't pretend that you're perfect. But also, like, children have this innate wisdom because they're not corrupted like we are as adults. And so, like, acknowledge that, look, I'm only human, and this is the limited knowledge that I know from my experiences. So this is what I'm going to teach you. But if you have any more, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's actually teaching the children what you know, but being open to letting them teach you something too. And so for me,
having the student-teacher role being interchanged.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one thing that frustrates me more than anything on this planet is the do as I say, not as I do. And
hypocrisy. Yes. Yeah. Being authentic to what you actually, you don't hold yourself accountable to your own standards.
Yeah. And then you don't allow other people to hold you accountable either. And that's the other thing. It's like, we know, the thing is, as humans, we know when we made a mistake. We know when we're not following our own word. The moment someone else wants to point it out, we get all like resistant and we want to argue and fight, or we go inwards and we shame ourselves and we go guilty and we,
Right.
So yeah, how do we build a community, a society of people that stand for what they say, and also with love support the people around them to continually stand for what they say as well, understanding that we're all broken and we all make mistakes.
How does one do that? What do you got for me?
That's kind of the journey that I'm on. I'm a part of some communities and some that are trying to do this. I'm a part of an organization called ISTA, International School for Temple Arts, and they run trainings all over the world, which are trying to give people their power back and to be able to speak their boundaries and be in consent and take their own power back and work on this inner marriage between our own masculine and our own feminine, because when we can heal that more, then our relationships externally will be more imbalanced, because rather than projecting all of my feminine onto my partner, I can keep mine in tune or in harmony here. And then all of a sudden I'm not so dependent on my female partner. Doesn't mean I don't love her. Doesn't mean we're not romantic and we don't do all the romantic things.
Right.
But I'm not as dependent on her for my Shakti energy.
So I feel dizzy, and I think it's your energy, which is great in a good way, because I'm like floored because, first of all, amazing. So I did mention to you, funny story. I did ask Tyran, if he was single when I first read his post, and he's like, what does that have to do with anything? And I'm like, dude, because it has a lot to do with it. So here's why I'd asked you that is, for the simple fact that when someone begins their spiritual journey, right, and they start sort of going through the shadow work of themselves, and they start opening those old traumas and they start healing those traumas. And then before you know it, they have had their awakening, right? But obviously, you know, within their own time frame, because every awakening is very different. And then they are now going into life. Not like, it's not like they went to someone, they just literally went within and went through this whole process, right? And now they're ready to receive love. And they go out there and they're like, I'm so ready. And everybody is still asleep. So, you know, so how, the reason why I asked you if you were single is because do you find, and I was looking through some of your pictures, I see that you are in a, you said open relationship, which I think is awesome. Do you find that you can, you know, that you're in an open relationship because there's still things that you're working on, and therefore, like, I don't know what the purpose is, and I would love to know for you to dive deeper into that, but I would also like your sort of guidance on how does one continue to find the patience, right? Because you mentioned not settling. So some people are settling. What about those awakened people that are settling because they're like, honestly, I can't wait another 20 years for this person to find Narnia in themselves and come out and be awakened. Why don't I just, you know, see what the potential is? So is it possible to be in a relationship with someone that's unawakened, which I know that there is, because we, you know, that's where all these things come from. But how do you, like, what do you suggest for people who are still in that process? They're still like, they don't depend on anyone. They're free. They're just like, dude, I'm working on it. I've continued to work on it, but I'm here to receive love. And everyone's kind of like, yeah, you're a little deep. You know what I mean? Like, you're super deep. And I'm not ready for that. So what do you, what are your thoughts on that? And tell us a little bit about your relationship.
So, yeah, through different flavors, I guess I want to start with, it always comes back to this inner marriage between our own masculine, our own feminine, our own Shiva and our own Shakti, regardless of whether you're in a male body or a female body. Because, yeah, let's say you're on a spiritual path and you're already in a relationship and your partner's not, okay, which then would mean that you feel unsatisfied to some extent with what they're offering you because you've gone on this new journey. Now, there's different ways to look at it, right? Like, it's not their fault. It's not their responsibility that you went on this other journey. Absolutely. So it's, you know, and this is the part of the relationships where a lot of us don't actually speak about agreements in the relationship. We don't talk about what it is we want from this relationship, and are we in harmony with our agreements, with what we both want. Now, in a world where nearly 60% of marriages end in divorce, and even more than that of relationships never even make it to marriage, it's quite easy to say that we continuously go, oh, I'm just not going to settle because you're not meeting me and I'm going to go. But we can use that relationship to go deeper into our own, like, quite often we're actually just not man enough. Sorry, we're just not strong enough.
No, I love it. It's a man's world. I get it.
Yeah. And I'm still working on my own stuff, you know, like I still have all the conditioning of all that stuff. So we're not strong enough to face our own demons, to face our own shadows that come up in a relationship. And if you have worked on your inner marriage enough, then it doesn't matter what the other person in the relationship is doing, because you are not dependent on them for your Shiva or your Shakti energy, regardless of whether they're male or female. So, you know, Neo Tantra teaches that men are Shiva and women are Shakti. Like, they have this, they don't teach the inner, that we both have both. So that's, you know, they have this polarity, which is why it can get so intense, and it's beautiful, and it is a beautiful dance. But also, when you're in a relationship and you realize that you have a Shiva and a Shakti, and your partner has a Shiva and a Shakti, the polarities, all of a sudden, there's more room for polarity. You know, so my partner can be in her Shiva and I can be in my Shakti, and we can play in that. And that adds more spice and more variety to our sex life. And not just our sex life, to our entire life. Because when I am feeling emotional and weak and not strong and not whatever, I can ask for support from her and she can give me the support that I need. So yeah, like that's, I believe, if you're in a relationship and you're going on a spiritual path and your partner's not, can you love this person as they are? Because at the end of the day, like, that's what you've committed to. And can you work on your inner marriage enough and get the aspects of your Shiva, let's say you're a woman, the aspects of your Shiva that your man is not meeting you in, can you do that for yourself? And if you can and you're happy, then that's great. And if it becomes an issue, and if you can, but if it's, you know, if there's an area that where you want more support and he's not giving it to you, can you try to work on it? Can you commit to, like, well, I've made this commitment and I love you and I want to go deeper, and these are my desires for our relationship. Like, can you address it and make new agreements in your relationship, or are you just going to hot tail it and fuck off? And this goes the same for men. Like, men are the same. Men have this, I just want freedom. I don't want obligation. I don't want, you know, this thing. So men can quite often fuck off as well. So it's not a sexy thing.
Everybody's just fucking off. That's what
everyone's just fucking off.
Everybody just wants to fuck off.
Yeah. And so then that ties into open relating, because I've witnessed in myself and a lot of other people, sometimes open relating can just be an excuse to not go really deep with one person. You know, it's like, oh no, I'm in my slutty energy and I just want to explore connecting and I don't want to be limited and I want my freedom, but I just want you back there to know that my heart is taken care of and I can come back whenever I want, you know. So it's a very tricky dance. And look, everyone goes through different phases of their sexuality, their spiritual evolution. Right. I'm, you know, I've never really gone this deep with anyone before that I have with my current partner. My last relationship, we opened and she slept with someone else and then she left me for him. So I went really deep into my abandonment wound in that experience, which made it really hard to want to be open again this time. But the reason that I'm in an open relationship personally is because deep down, I do believe that we are all love, and love is the only vibration that exists on the planet, just at different frequencies. And that, you know, when I'm in a committed relationship with someone and I love her and she loves me, why do we have to keep that love closed to not allow anyone else in? Now, the jealousy and the fear that comes up when she relates with someone else means that I'm not fully comfortable, or I'm not fully confident in me and who I am as a full, entitled, sovereign being or soul. And what it means is I feel like that there's not enough love on the planet, that I'm going to miss out, that somehow I'm not getting my fair share or what's warranted to me. And I had this, call it crazy, it probably is, but imagine being so in love with yourself, so self-empowered, that you can witness your partner making love with someone else and not only not feel jealous, but actually feel happy and ecstatic and be like, I love myself so much that doesn't bother me at all. Like, I love myself so much that I'm not scared that she's not going to leave me. And even if she does, I know that I'm going to be okay, because at the end of the day, I am, because love is everywhere and in everyone and in everything. And so, yeah, like, you know, I look at that as such a place of self-empowerment that, like, no one can touch you in that moment. Like, you know, that's for me, that's the ultimate abandonment fear. The woman that I've given my heart to is going to fuck off and leave it there on the altar bleeding, you know. And it happened. It happened earlier this year, and I'm okay. I'm here on the other side. Don't get me wrong. I went through 4 weeks of wanting to burn things.
Right. I hear you. I can't imagine. But it's still like the human, right, experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also suppress that shadow part. Like, we suppress the parts of us that want to kill and destroy and cut and mutilate and destroy. And, like, because it's not nice, it's dirty. You know, like, yeah, it's not nice, but the world's not nice. And when you're emotionally hurt, you don't want to do nice things. So rather than say, oh, it's okay, love and light, and it's all okay, and everything's love, it's like, yeah, everything is ugliness. but I'm going to go through the ugliness. I'm going to express all of this hatred and fear and disgust and wanting to do bad, dirty, nasty things, because once I've expressed it all, it doesn't affect me anymore. I've moved through it. I'm not just holding on to it and pretending like it doesn't exist, which is the yogi way. And I've studied yoga in India, and it's very masculine. Like, yoga was taught by men for men.
Yeah.
It's a super masculine approach. It's like sit still and silent for hours and connect with universal consciousness. That is masculine. That's structure. That's firmness. That is, and so that's not avoiding. Like, look, it works for some people, and that's great. The other way, which is the more feminine way, is go deep down, dark into the emotions, into the feelings, into the chaos and the crazy, wild, erotic, sensual places, and then through there you birth as love again. So there's two different ways to go. And
literally, I'm like, my mind is blown, because it's like the masculine is like sitting still, but you said going up, and then the feminine is sitting still but going in. So it's like, but both are, they're both inward, but it's both different directions. Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I wouldn't say the feminine sits still. The feminine's kind of like crazy erotic.
We're like doing our dance. We're dancing with our rhythm, because it's all about, we're constantly, every 28 days, we're changing our vibration.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more shamanic. It's more the pagan kind of, the dark. It's the embodiment. It's the acceptance of everything. It's not the let's just ignore the dark stuff and go up to the light. It's like, let's just welcome it all. So working on the inner marriage, because when that's strong, then nothing else affects us, regardless of what we're doing and who we're relating with. And look, I'm nowhere near there. Okay, I just want to make that abundantly clear. My partner does relate with other men, and it hurts. It hurts. There's been moments when I've had moments of joy and I've experienced what I want to, but it doesn't happen all the time.
So I have a huge, of course I have questions, like literally things that are coming up. So would you say that you are exploring this because you're trying to overcome the abandonment issues? Is that why you're exploring it? Because see, is it, I mean, I understand what it would be like to feel that free, that, and it won't affect you, because no one belongs to anyone, right? That's all illusions, right? Like we're born alone, we die alone. That's kind of how it works. But when we come to a certain idea of bonds, right? And we come to these sort of ideas of, we're saying like, look, here's this union, right? And I don't know, because there's no guarantees of any kind of union going according to plan, right? Because that's just not how life is. We grow with the way life grows. And do you think, though, that it's possible that at some point, once you've gotten to that point where you're like, okay, I'm over it. What if you never get to that point, is my question. What if you never get to that point where you're like, dude, I'm never going to be okay with the person I'm in a relationship with being with someone else? Is that okay? Does that make you less awakened, or does it make you love the part of yourself that says, you know what? I know that I am a spiritual being having a human experience, and this is always going to be some truth about the human experience that I may have to accept and maybe even honor.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's coming back to your dignity and your self-respect and knowing where you are and what your boundaries are. Now, I know lots of people that are nowhere, that don't want to even try to tap into that. And that's fine. They know where their boundaries are. They know that it's like, no, I don't want to do open relating. I'm a monogamous person, and that's who I am. I don't try and push open relating on anyone. I offer invitations for them to view it differently. If they have a one-way view of it, then, and I've met a lot of people who say I could never do it. And then when I talk to them about it, they kind of go, I still couldn't do it, but I understand what you're saying.
Right.
and so that's all, that's what I like doing, like making people think outside of the box that they currently maybe reside in.
Sure.
And yes, there might be a point when I just get to this, like, you know what, I've been trying this for 5 years or 10 years and I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's me. And my partner at that time, if I have one, I will express that and see where we're at and what she's at, or he, depending on whatever the future holds. Who knows?
Who knows, right? I love that you're so open and you're like, look, you never know. It's true. You're right. And I love the endless possibilities. I was going to ask you though, what happens though, like, because I feel like your focus is very much on healing that, right? So, because I love that. I love the openness of everything. And I'm all about all these different realities that coexist with ourselves. What if your focus is like healing that that like abandonment issue, but in the process of doing that, because you're so open, you fall for someone else?
Yeah.
What happens there? Do you do the polygamous thing? And
I don't know. I don't know. I
just
can't
kind of go with it.
Yeah, I can't predict the future. Like, I've thought about it. I was like, could I have multiple relationships with multiple people? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Some of the communities I'm involved in, people have that desire. They have this desire to live with, like, 3 men and 3 women in the same household where love flows in every direction and there are no limitations. And what does that look like? What does that look like if you throw children in the mix? Like, what does that look like in a tribal situation where people live in a community? Like when you go back to those days, that's how life existed. You didn't have a mum and a dad. You had like a birth mother and a birth father, but the child was raised by the entire tribe. And that way, my wounds didn't get passed on to my children, because my children, like my physical children, were raised by everyone. So they gained knowledge from everyone and they took whatever they wanted from everyone, as opposed to having to listen to everything I say. And so, yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you. I can't tell you what if my partner wants to open a relationship with someone else. Like, my wounding right now would not really be okay with that. And we're very early on in our relationship. So there's lots of like fear there at the same time. Yeah, like I don't have answers to those questions.
No, it's all good. First of all, there's some very deep, like, powerful questions, but I was just curious because of sort of where you are on your journey. And it's quite beautiful to just like know that you're on this path of really just like no limits. Like that's what it sounds like. There's just like no limits of what you were taught, no limits of no construct, really. It's just kind of like, it's you, it's your being yourself, and the courage, because it takes a lot of courage, right? To, first of all, put yourself in that position where you're like, I just want to see if I could be that like happy, where like that's, I think, is the ultimate unfuckwithable mindset, where like I'm with you and we're in a relationship, but like you're having sex with someone else, I'm in the room and I'm looking and I'm like, yep, that's awesome. Like,
go get it, girl. Oh
like,
yeah,
that's amazing. Like, you're just so empowered by it, and it's like, wow, that's a whole different other freedom. That's a freedom of like really, you no longer belong to the human experience. You are now living on another dimension, where you're saying, I cannot get affected by anything.
By your actions, because I take full responsibility. And the thing is, the people that think that's weird or crazy, yeah, you're probably right to some extent, but it's freedom of obligation. It's like, because so many times when we get into a typical monogamous relationship, we don't talk about what we want from the relationship, and all of a sudden, let's say it's me and you, for example, we get together, we don't actually talk about what the agreements are in our relationship. So my views of a monogamous relationship could be different to your views of a monogamous relationship. And now all of a sudden I'm going to expect things from you without me actually voicing them. And if you don't live up to them, I'm going to be upset and I'm going to be hurt. And so, and your views of what are expected of me in this relationship are going to be, different to what I think they are. So unless we find harmony in that as well, then there's going to be discernment in our relationship. So rather than being obligated to do something. When you're in that place, when I'm fully empowered and you're fully empowered, everything that I do, you know, is now because I want to do it, not because I feel obligated by our relationship status.
Right.
And therefore, everything I do for you is from a place of fullness. And you feel that because, you know, when you, all of a sudden I'm just not like, oh, babe, do you want me to do this for you? And you're like, oh, I really like that. And I'm like, okay. And I'm doing it just to keep the relationship happy, because like, that's not happiness. That's not joy. That's not going to maintain a healthy relationship. We think it is because we're sacrificing, but we're raping ourselves. We're doing something that we don't want to do in order to keep the relationship happy, but we're actually not keeping ourselves happy first. And if we're not happy, the relationship's not going to be happy. So yeah, you know, if we can.
So, okay. So the agreements that you had mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
when is the appropriate time, as you say, to start voicing it? Me and you, we're about to, literally, we're meeting on this great channel, right? Woohoo! Here we go. But now we're going to meet in person, right? And it's our quote unquote stereotypical first date. Do I tell you from the jump, like, hey, I am looking to receive love, because by nature, I am a giver. I give to humanity. I give to the world. I give light. I give essence. And now I'm ready to receive love. I don't want to heal you. I don't want to be your therapist. I just want to give you love that comes naturally from me. And I want to receive love that comes naturally for you. How does one say that without sounding like, dude, I thought we were just going bowling? You know what I mean? Like, how do you do, so when do you establish those agreements? From the first date, from the second, or do you do it like whenever you feel like it's right? When do you establish those agreements?
Well, that's like saying, like, when should we eat in the day? It's like everyone likes to eat when they're hungry, you know? It's like what works for you is what work is different. It's a feeling. It's like when you feel hungry, feed yourself. So it's the same thing. It's like, okay, maybe some people are very strict on, they know what they want, and they will mention that in date one. They're like, okay, so before this goes any further, these are my like non-negotiables as a part of a relationship.
Right.
I want to do this, 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 and this. And the other person's like, whoa, nah, no way. And you're like, all right, cool. Let's enjoy this date and say goodbye. That's it. You know, or maybe you say it at the end of the date, go, look, I really enjoyed myself. This was an amazing date. I would love to see you again. But I have some fear because like I have some desires in life that I would like to do. And, you know, like there's a million different ways to do it depending on how you want to do it. I definitely recommend doing it sooner rather than later, because once our emotions get involved and we feel loved and accepted to some extent, we then get scared to express our truth, because if that person doesn't love us the way, the deep part of us that we want to be, you know, that's when we settle. Like I said earlier, it's like, I would rather, I'm not going to tell them this fantasy, or I'm not going to tell them this desire, because they already love me. And if I tell them this, then maybe they won't love me and they'll withdraw their love, and then I'm going to get hurt because I'm going to feel abandoned. And I'd rather settle with 40% than guaranteed than, you know, say no and not get anything. So, yeah. And again, that comes back to this fear that there's not enough love on the planet, that there's not enough of whatever, when it's all bullshit, because everything's love. And, you know, the more honest you are, like the more honest you are with yourself, and then that vibrates around you, people will come to you because they resonate with what it is you're vibrating. And we've said, like, you know, they say this so much in spiritual circles, like what you vibrate, you know, that you raise your vibration and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it makes so much sense. Like we even say it in the non-spiritual terms, like, I don't like that guy's vibe, you know, like you say that, you know, I don't like that guy's vibe or that girl's vibe, or they got a funny thing about them. It's like, that's a vibration that you're picking up on. Spiritual people are not weird talking in a language that you don't understand. They just use the entire word vibration rather than shortening it to vibe, you know. And yeah, it's like, when is real for you? Like that moment of commitment, I believe. It's like, okay, am I prepared to commit to this person? If I'm thinking about committing, this is when I need to be honest. So maybe that's date one, maybe that's date two, maybe it's online before you meet, you know, like expressing your human desires. Like my desire is to be in a monogamous relationship with one person and have 2 children and live happily ever after. And
not your desire, not your desire specifically, not you.
Yeah. And maybe the other person's like, oh no, I don't want to have any children. I want to go travel the world. It's like, all right, there's no point in us catching up.
Right.
But we have this thing in us that's like, oh, but we really get along, and but we have lots of love. And it's like, well, you know, we want to like grasp at things rather than just like, love is like water in a sense. You can cup it in your hand, but if you try to squeeze onto it, it's going to squeeze out in between your fingers. So when the tighter you try to hold on to love, the less love you're actually going to have.
Oh, beautiful. So my last question for you is, what would you like to see more of in the world?
More honesty and integrity. And that looks a million different ways. You know, the first thing that came to mind was like, oh, more acceptance of emotions, or more acceptance of the dark, or more whatever. But all that comes back to is honesty and integrity. It's like, the honest part of me that feels shit right now, or the honest part of me that doesn't feel happy, and the acceptance of that, like by me and by other people, and then yeah, the integrity to ourselves of like, I'm better than that, and I'm not going to put up with this. You know, my boundary is here, and I'm going to live my life in this boundary, because if I live life in this boundary, imagine it like a river, right? And the water in the river is your life flow, your life force, your current. The stronger the boundaries, the stronger the banks of the river, the faster the river can flow. But the moment you have a block, be it emotional, spiritual, whatever, the moment you have a block, the water stops. So, and you have to work out whether your blocks, whether like the things in your life are blocks or boundaries. If it's a block, that's something you need to work through until it becomes a boundary. And then when you know it's a boundary, then you just keep flowing. So, but to do that, we need to be fucking honest with ourselves. Men need to be honest when they feel shit and weak, and women need to, like, this is in the typical paradigm.
Yeah.
As men, we need to get fucking honest with ourselves and be like, I feel insecure. I feel shit. I don't feel like I can do this. I feel like this and I feel like that, and express that. And women need to as well. And we need to accept that in the other, like, as in, not just in sexual relationships, but in like parents and children and friends and family, and, you know, and not try to fix everyone all the time. Like, sometimes we just want to be seen. You know, the post that you're referring to is what women want, and women just want presence, but the feminine in men just wants presence too. Like, sometimes we don't want to be fixed. We don't want to be told we're doing the wrong thing. We don't want to be judged and ridiculed. We just want to be seen in our brokenness and loved in that space.
Absolutely beautiful. Tyran, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of your wisdom. You guys can catch Tyran at The Harry Healer on Facebook. He is a sex and relationship coach. He's also on Instagram. I will be putting in the links in the comment section, in the bio. And also, we are so grateful that he is here and he shared with us all of this. So thank you so much. If you guys like this, please like the video, share it, subscribe to it, put it out there. We want all this information to circulate. We really want to put this out there for anyone at this point that's watching, resonates. Please reach out to Tyran, reach out to me, reach out to someone, get help. You know, it's okay, right? It's okay, because all at the end of the day, it's all love. It's love for self that makes us whole, and then makes us a whole society, which becomes upliftment for the humanity. So we love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Peace and love. Thank you, Tyran.
Thanks, Gabriella. Bye, everyone.